in the amounts that you're talking about, well, yeah, if you sat there and you drank the entire pool's contents, yeah, that chlorine will kill you. The water will kill you first.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Sedition podcast. We have a great show for you today, I think. My name's Nate Brady, alongside...
I'm Mike Smith. I'm reporting from the field office today.
Yeah,
I'm out in the Indio deserts of California.
No, don't give your address. Don't let them know.
My address? You can't find me.
Well, don't say that. They'll find you. They'll always find you. Yeah, don't give them the Antifa field address headquarters. That's okay. Not good. Okay,
I'll keep that right here.
Okay, we have things to talk about, but first, Mike, I want to ask you. There's a guy that's been in the news recently that I'm not hearing anything from lately. I don't see his dumb orange head on the TV or on my social media feeds. What the hell? Why is Trump so quiet right now?
Yeah, it's weird because he's quiet, which is
right.
Horribly out of character for him, obviously. But I mean, his staff is not quiet, and his transition team is definitely not quiet. I saw a stat at the end of last week that I found interesting, where they were talking about how most transition teams will have announced, their nomination. Like they'll start the nomination process or like start picking nominees for the next term around Thanksgiving. And the stat I saw was, well, he's going to be done with his cabinet picks by Thanksgiving. Which is pretty much the case. On social media and all that, he is out there and just making picks and getting to business.
Is he making the picks? or are the people
given close the quality of the picks?
Yeah,
giant eye roll. No, I don't think anyone but him has any say this time around on the picks. I'm sure that there are people, whispering in his ear, but I think this time around he's playing, nope, I tried it. Listening to political incumbents or whatever last time, I'm not doing that again. We're doing this full Trump way. And he just started picking people that he knows would help him.
Yeah, that would be loyal to him.
Matt Gaetz, that fell apart right in his lap. And I can only imagine how furious he must have been. Because that was like one of his first picks was Matt Gaetz for AG, right? And now he's not even in Congress anymore. And he's not going to be the AG.
He is on Cameo, though. I don't know if you've heard about this.
I did hear about that.
Matt Gaetz, if you're looking for an uplifting message, maybe a message for your kids, let's say you have a 15, 16-year-old.
No.
Oh, no. Oh, wait, no? No.
Don't do. No. Don't. Not a good gift.
Not a good gift. All right, never mind. Don't spend the $500 on the...
Here's what you do.
Okay.
You get somebody to bankroll it, like The Daily Show or something to that effect. But you start by having Matt Gaetz do a cameo, and the script is that he's talking to George Santos. George? What's his name?
George.
Yeah, Santos of the previous one. Then you pay his cameo to do a response to that, and you just have them do dialogue.
You just keep going back and forth.
So you've got like a good read. You put it on your podcast. It would be a lot of fun.
Okay. I think Boebert's actually on it as well, from what I just saw.
Can I just ask about that? Because I know that you and I we differ on this, but cameo to me feels very out of my comfort zone. I don't want celebrities to talk to and about me in any way, and so this whole thing feels very foreign to me. But why are elected officials doing this to like supplement the earning that they get? I mean, they get paid like $175,000 a year just for being either House member or senator or whatever.
And
why are they taking $500 a pop cameos?
Well, first of all, Matt Gaetz is unemployed right now, so I guess I can understand maybe where that's coming from.
Sure, he and Santos I understand, but Boebert's a sitting member.
Yeah, I don't know. And plus, I mean, I'm sure she's pocketing allegedly money from all of the lobbies and all of the ways that she can. That people like her with zero scruples left will
or shame.
or yeah, well, she'll take money any way she can get it. So, but yeah, I don't really understand the Cameo thing. I do. I don't have a comfort zone. I'm never comfortable, so Cameo doesn't really bother me. And I've
Yeah.
had my wife has gotten me like one or two
Yeah, yeah,
in the
you've done a
past.
couple of Cameo
Um,
outreaches, which the whole idea is just very cringe to me, and I can't. It just it icks me. I don't like it.
yeah, no, I can totally see that.
Yeah,
By the way,
but I
I'll be
mean,
on Cameo starting tomorrow for no, I'm kidding. I'm not on Cameo.
it's not a
Um,
live thing, right? It's like you just record a
no, it's
message to
just yeah.
somebody and they send you
You
a
say,
script
"Hey, it's
for it.
my husband's birthday. Can you
Right.
fucking here's some notes. Say something nice about him."
Man, that'd be pretty great. You guys want us to get a cameo? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll do
Just,
cameos for
just
you.
I'll take like and subscribe, and I'll be happy to send you a personalized message. Never mind, sending us $35 or whatever to
Yeah, yeah.
to say,
For a little personalized message.
yeah. Okay,
Do you save them forever? Is that one of those things that you like you
yeah,
keep?
sure,
Man,
right?
you hand it
Like
to your grandkids. You're like, I'll have you know
I'll
that
have you
Nate
know the
Brady
guy who
sent me
did
a
the voice.
personalized
Yeah,
message.
yeah. Yeah, I don't really understand. Um, I don't know. Anyway, Trump. So Trump,
Yes,
he's not dead. You're saying you don't think
it
so?
seems unlikely at this
Okay.
point, but you know, one can hope, one can pray, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
But no, he's filling cabinet seat members, or at the very least, putting names next to the lines because he's got to have that ready.
Right.
And I think that there's at least some argument to be made here, and this is probably just levels of cope, but uh, that he's getting out in front of them so quickly so that he can get low hanging fruit knocked out of the way. So you can imagine a different universe in where Trump is actually kind of a political genius instead of Trump. And he's like, I want to put these people in, but I know that they're going to, balk at several of them. So I'm going to put the craziest ones I can, and I'm going to announce them early and loudly.
Right.
Get the Republican senators to say, "Look how moderate I am. Look how reasonable I can be. I'm saying no to Bobo the clown here." And and then he's going
And
to
then
put in
Pam
his
Bondi
actual
sneaks in, and
sycophants.
yeah, yeah. Then all these other picks seem, I guess, reasonable by contrast, right? Um,
My God.
like
Yeah, if RFK Jr. seems reasonable by contrast, then we've got a big
Well,
problem.
okay, no, RFK was in the first class of Bobo the Clowns.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
actually
He engaged.
RFK is a good one. You dropped a short the other night that was
I did.
interesting. You talked about fluoride. You had some things to say
Yeah,
there. So I want to transition to that a little bit because there is now a big debate around the whole fluoride in the water. It's I don't know, making the frogs gay and killing our children or whatever it is.
yeah.
So I know that
Alex
this
Jones would tell you it's making the frogs gay.
it's
That's
making the
true.
frogs gay. I know you have things to say about this, so I'm gonna hand it
Yeah,
over to you. You learned me something about the fluoride things.
yeah, I did a lot of research into this because it's one of those things that it's just like this is so simple to understand at a high level, even though it's sort of a nuanced discussion. And well, I'll dig into that in a minute. But like fluoride strengthens tooth enamel, or at the
Sure.
very least, reduces the rate at which tooth enamel decays over time. So, what does that really mean in practice? It means that children, specifically children, but also adults, generally, when they have fluoridized water, will have stronger teeth growing up and will have fewer dental problems in the future.
Okay.
Really easy to understand.
Okay.
And so RFK Jr. comes out with this position of I'm going to remove fluoride from the drinking water supply. First and foremost, he can't really do that.
Right.
That's a recommendation made by the CDC, but it's up to local governments and ordinances to actually enforce that. Like whether or not fluoride gets into the tap water is all about your local government,
Okay.
and they're just listening to recommendations.
Okay.
But what I will say is, we have 50 years of actual evidence of the health benefits and no health negatives of having fluoride in the drinking water. It definitely helps tooth enamel, and it's shown no long-term ill effects. We have longitudinal studies that have spanned decades showing that fluoride in the amounts that the CDC recommends them in the drinking water is perfectly healthy with no adverse side effects. And those have been studied and then restudied and then restudied for the last 50 years because people like RFK come out and they say these things that they have to say, well, let's look at it from this other way. What about, fluoride as it relates to autism rates, or fluoride as it relates
Sure.
to asthma in children and breathing rates, things like that. And so you look at it from a bunch of different angles, but the science still suggests that there's no adverse ill effects on the human body.
Okay. So
Um,
so certainly in large doses though, like anything, right?
like anything.
Yeah.
I made this. I wanted to put it on the the short, but I ran out of time. I make the parallel to people who liked. I've had this argument with friends and family members who don't understand the science, and they're like, "But it's a poison. It's a toxin. It in certain doses it can be very bad for you." I said, "Yes, it can." And have you ever been in a swimming pool and drank a mouthful of swimming pool water?
Of
Because that's got
chlorine and
chlorine in it,
yeah.
and chlorine is a deadly toxin that is used to kill living things. That's
Right.
all it's for.
Sure.
And so, in the amounts that you're talking about, well, yeah, if you sat there and you drank the entire pool's contents, yeah, that chlorine will kill you. The water will kill you first, but the chlorine is dangerous in that amounts, and the
So
same is true with fluoride. Yeah, fluoride.
so I came to
But
armed. I came to armed with this for this discussion.
get me.
So okay. I mean, this isn't about getting you, but I do have some questions. So first, I want to
Okay.
go over some numbers here.
Yep.
This is according to several different studies. There's state-specific savings for having fluoride in the water for citizens, right? So Colorado has said that the fluoridated water has saved nearly 149 million a year, averaging about $61 per person per year savings from not going to the dentist, from other
Oh,
cavity
okay. Okay.
related.
From
Yep.
yeah.
Texas, the state Medicaid program says that families save an average of $25 per child annually. New York says low income children in counties with less fluoridation need 33% more dental treatments than those in counties with more fluoridation treatment. Okay. So right across the board, I mean, it's saying that not only is it good for you, clearly, but it's also saving money for families. So my
Yes.
question to you is, does RFK Jr., because I know he has this thought about other things, which probably rightfully so, that go into the food. Is he being nefarious here? Is this a like we want we're trying to get the health insurance companies to make more money? Is this a back to the whole privatization thing, or is he legitimately trying to do right, what he thinks is right by
Right.
by Americans?
Yeah, I think that for RFK Jr., I think that they have an actual um just I think I believe, at least in the way that he phrases things about his positions on human health and nutrition, and I'm not going to talk about vaccines, but just generally, he has a position of wanting to help. I think
Okay.
that he is just kind of a misinformed person who wants to help. He's, quote, done his own research, end quote, and he thinks he knows the answers. He likes to point to other developed nations that don't have fluoridized drinking water and point to their dental records and how they have similar levels of findings like the ones you're showing about how tooth decay is reduced over time for the last 50 years, and how in particular in children, and he likes to attribute that to just general health of the mouth, like just dental cleanliness, brushing your teeth, rinsing your mouth out, flossing, that sort of thing. And there has been an increase in that for the last 50 years, and that's definitely something uh, worth doing. But what he omits from all of these arguments is that the other countries that don't have fluoridized drinking water have programs specifically in the schools. So if you look at, I believe it's like Finland, or maybe it was Switzerland. I don't have my notes with me,
But definitely Japan and a few of the other Asian countries, what they do instead is they have school programs where you twice a month do a fluoride rinse in your
Right.
mouth. Now, the difference there is that you're not swallowing it, obviously. You're just rinsing it along your teeth and your gums, and you're trying to get it to soak in, and then you spit it out, you go
Right.
do your day, and you get the same, health
Well,
benefits of
to
having
that
that
point,
kind of fluoride treatment versus the fluoridization of
fluoridated.
the drinking water. It's
I
fluoridization. It's a very strange
it's
word.
I don't think there's I think it's fluoridation.
Fluoridation. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
But anyway, that's funny. I don't know if you saw the comment. Shout out to those of you who comment on our podcast and on our shorts. We really appreciate the interactions. Unless you're a moron, then I don't. I mean, I guess I still appreciate it because it
I
gets it
haven't
into.
seen it. I've been traveling, so I
So
just sat down today.
so there was a very lengthy, well worded response from somebody who is Japanese who has said he basically said, listen, I don't understand. Go read it on Mike's short.
Okay.
I don't want to paraphrase because I want to give him a ton of credit. It was well thought out, well worded. But he was talking about how, hey, we actually take this kind of thing really serious in Japan. We don't put that stuff in our water. We're not as uh, we err towards extreme risk aversion versus what I perceive the Americans being less, which I disagree with. As we know, there are no studies that show that fluoride is harmful in the water. But anyway, I
Right.
actually had to point out the same thing. Well, actually, the reason why there's no fluoride in the water in Japan is because of that school program that you're talking about, where
Yeah.
millions of children are do this fluoride mouthwash. But what's
Twice
even
a
more
month. Yeah.
interesting, like you said about the toothpaste, is that the difference between the amount of fluoride, there's so much more fluoride in toothpaste and these mouthwashes than there are in the water. So when people are saying, but you ingest the water, the parts per million in the water is so ridiculously small
Minuscule. Yeah.
versus what you actually do in like fluoride toothpaste, for instance, that swallowing just a little bit of fluoride toothpaste or absorbing it, which you will do because you're brushing your teeth with it, you're actually absorbing so much more fluoride than you would if you drank 7, 8 glasses of water, of tap water, throughout the day. So it's kind of wild to me that people think that drinking it at such a small ppm is a problem.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's more. I mean, this is such a fascinating topic to me. But speaking sort of toward or to this person who comes from the background of being out of Japan and having these things, I'll point out that the argument I see that RFK's Jr. is making, and I hear it a lot, and friends and family members who are they self-identify as libertarian, because, and you know this, Nate, this is nothing new to you, but they like to champion in the idea of I want I want personal freedoms that I can opt into.
Right,
I don't
right,
want to be forced to make a
right.
decision that's mostly good for the entire society, but I have no say in it. And just at its face value, I think we can like take politics out of this for now and just say, I understand that argument. I understand being like, you know what? I'm just not sure about this. I know there's a bunch of science and stuff that I'm not going to do research on, but I'm just not sure. I'm not comfortable with this decision being made for me. I'd rather there be a system in place where I can opt in, like in the Japanese systems where you have this opt in at the schools for the children to do these rinsings. However, if you're going to do that, then what you're telling me is that, okay, but what about people um, who aren't in school?
Who
What
aren't
do
in
adults
school?
do for fluoride
Yeah.
treatments if they're not going to, school or whatnot? That means that they have to have dentist visits where they're having fluoride treatments provided for them or to them, and or they're doing, just there's more dental work. Doesn't have to be with a dentist proper, but you've seen like they have all sorts of sort of boutique services available for teeth and health these days, and that would just become another piece of it, and that costs money. And not only does it cost money, but it takes time. So in Japan, the answer is, well, what do adults do instead of these twice monthly rinsings? Oh, well, they have dental care covered as a part of their nationalized health
What?
care. Yeah.
That's
So
absurd.
they just do that for free.
I
It's
am
part of our
hearing,
taxes.
this might be the first time you've heard it. Well, maybe you know about Japan, but I'm hearing that most wealthy nations, these first world nations, guarantee healthcare for their citizens. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I have heard about that. And that's the argument that I always come back with the libertarian point of view. Even if you're just like, I want to have to opt into these programs. I'm like, well, you're marginalizing a huge amount of American citizens in this view because many, many, many people don't have the means or ability to make that
Right,
opt in that you would want to
right.
not make. And so that's why we bring out the math. That's why we talk about the greater social good. And in this case, the greater social health of having uh, fluorine in the water, fluoride in the water, excuse me,
Yeah,
because it's just something that's extremely cheap for local governments to do. It has just an enormous upside. And again, we haven't seen any studies of any downsides yet. Now, JFK Jr. and his like minded uh, voter base basically will argue that there are negative consequences and they wish they had a different option. Well, okay, buy bottled water that doesn't have fluoride in it. Okay. I don't know what to tell you, but you can't take something away from the marginalized groups because they can't afford it. If you know what I mean,
yeah,
if you're going to not also assume some costs of your individual opt-ins or opt-outs.
yeah. Um,
And go ahead.
well, I just want to first before I forget, I want to say to the person who commented, because they sent a few more replies as well. They first of all, again, really well written, and I want to say they made some really great points about, for instance, health conscious Americans in the United States. They'll stay away from like processed foods. That's like a big no for them. And so RFK um, is wants to get rid of certain process, the food coloring dyes,
Yeah,
the other ways
food
that we process
dyes
food,
and heavily
which,
processed foods.
yeah, so it's not to say that he is wrong about everything that he talks about. I mean, you can be
No,
right about some things and very wrong about other things. And fluoride,
I
he's just wrong about.
yeah, and another way of thinking about this that I find sort of interesting because I bring this up whenever I argue with the libertarians as well is well, you're talking about removing an individual freedom by and large. You're taking something out of the main populace that everyone has, not free, but as free as things get in terms of like water, right, from the tap. Health care, for lack of a better explanation. But when you talk about processed foods and food dyes and things like that, and they're like, we need to outlaw this. We need to make it illegal to
Right.
sell food that is unhealthy in these ways. I like to turn to them and say, well, then why aren't you outlawing cigarettes? Because we know that cigarettes are extremely harmful to people and they have been for the dawn of time. So why are you pro banning something like that, but not banning something like that?
Well, it's really interesting because they're like RFK and Republicans are like, well, it should be states' rights or whatever. Well, first of all, fluoride is state right. Well, it's even all the way
It's
down
cities'
to
rights.
it's
Yeah.
even down to the city's rights. And actually, we can talk about. I think Portland is one of the ones recently to ban fluoride in their water because the mayor made the same claim of like individual freedoms, or I should get to decide what it, that aside, so you say that's states' rights, but then you want to ban certain things from our food. So I don't understand. I have a, I have
Yeah.
a, I have a hard
Yeah.
time.
How do you make a rule in favor of banning something and then make the same argument but from the other side of against banning something? Like I don't get it.
So I mean,
Um,
go ahead, go ahead.
there's another interesting. Uh, I hate to keep going back to fluoride, but I just again I think find it so fascinating. You shared a map with me that
Oh,
showed
I do. Where is
the
that
the
map?
levels of fluoride in the drinking water and just geographically in the United States and basically how uh, I don't know how much fluoride they use. There's probably like a chemist's term for that, but I don't know what it is. And um, I think that I, I spent a lot of time looking at this map, and it made me wonder if there was some. Yeah, there you go. If there was some amount of incidence to fluoride concentration and a relation to how hard or soft your water is. So by that I mean like the level of minerals that are in your water
Right.
just naturally.
Yeah.
So depending on where you are,
Because
you
fluoride
imagine.
occurs in water naturally, right?
Sure, but if you also have like, say you have extremely hard water,
Right.
then maybe you need more fluoride to actually uh, do its chemical thing to actually be an effective uh, additive to the water.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but I was looking at this map, going, man, they use a lot of fluoride there in the Rust Belt, and I'm going, what? Why do these states over here not use it so much? And I wonder if it has to do with soft water or not.
Yeah, I wonder if people who drink like spring water and who avoid like tap water realize
Yeah.
that their water, when it says like mountain spring or mineral water, like what do they think those minerals are? There's
Yeah.
literally
What are these
fluoride
minerals?
in your water. Like spring water contains fluoride, and it actually may contain in some cases more fluoride depending on where you get it from than what's in your tap water. So I'm
Yeah.
very I'm first interested if people know that. I did share this map with you for a funnier reason, which I don't know if I conveyed, but there is the. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is true that if you have very, very large amounts of fluoride, that can be associated with lower IQ, right? So the joke I'm making here is I'm seeing a lot of red states that have high fluoride in the water, but are also red states. So what's going on with you dummies? No, that was. I mean, look at California, look at Massachusetts, and some of the Democratic
Obviously, this doesn't
states.
have to do with concentration in the water in this map.
It's
You
it's
did
more
show
of
me
the
a different map,
percentage
but
of
this
people
one
that.
says is actually the percentage of
Yeah,
people in the states who receive fluoridated water.
right, right.
And I think that this just shows us that in those states, people are more likely to drink tap water. If you look at California and Washington, like there, people don't by and large like to drink tap. Nobody I know besides me drinks tap water. Everyone else is buying bottled
That's
water. They've
that's
got
funny
filtered
when
water.
he asked the commenter on our YouTube channel when he asked like I do you know Americans that drink tap water? I was like, yeah, sure I do, because I know you love drinking tap water, and I'm the opposite. But it's not because of fluoride. I literally just taste the difference with certain waters that I
Yeah.
like. You know.
Well, I've spent a number of years. I travel. I mean, I lived in California, and I've spent a lot of my life in both Oklahoma and Texas. And I can tell you, there is just a difference in the way the water tastes from
Yeah.
state to state.
Yeah. For
It
sure.
does it come from river? Does it come from reservoir?
Yeah.
Did it come through the mountains or under the mountains or around the mountains? It's like it's always going to taste differently, and that's those minerals that you're talking about. The
Right.
minerals that are heavy in calcium chloride over there, is lower over there. So
But and actually,
this is tap water, by the way.
millions and hundreds of millions of Americans drink tap water. Anytime you go to a restaurant and you get a water, anytime you get a fountain drink from a fast
Yeah.
food restaurant, that's all tap water. I mean, they're not
Anytime
pouring
you ask for
Avion into
water and
your
somebody gives it
freaking.
to you for free,
Yeah,
it's tap water.
yeah, it's definitely tap water. Um, okay, so I just want to continue on RFK Jr. just for a second here because
Yeah, yeah.
I gave him a little bit of credit for certain things that he wants to do. Again, I think you make a great point that a lot of the things he wants to do, it's just going to be recommendations, and a lot of
Yeah.
people are just not going to listen to ridiculous recommendations. We have to go back and look at some of the absurd things he says. We won't even talk about vaccines because we already know that that's
Okay.
absurd. But he said
Yeah.
other absurd things, like he suggested that AIDS it may not be caused by HIV. Like,
Right. Not necessarily causal, is I think what he said.
yeah, like decades of scientific research. RFK is like, well, let me tell you what I think as a guy who drags around bear carcasses wherever I go. So yeah, thanks for that. My daughter, this one is really important to me because my daughter was diagnosed with systemic lupus, several years ago, and it was right around the time when hydroxychloroquine was making that huge
Oh yeah.
like, oh, this cures lupus or whatever, and cures COVID, and lupus patients were worried, and doctors were worried that hydroxychloroquine was going to be a problem, getting it for their patients. So he just, and ivermectin as well. He makes a lot of just ridiculous claims without having the scientific research to back it up. And this is the guy now that's just gonna be in charge of HHS and telling and giving recommendations that, by the way, a lot of these cities, counties, Republican states are just gonna follow without doing their own, science-backed studies.
That is my sincere worry about this, is that I don't think RFK Jr. is nefarious in the same way that Trump is. I think that Trump, honestly, he only cares about himself. He doesn't care if he has to destroy American democracy to get what he wants. He just wants to get what he wants. RFK Jr., I get the feeling that he wants to be liked, and he has some ideas that he's come to on his own, about health, nutrition, and the like, and he feels like he wants to help people. And so my very, very real worry is that he's going to have impassioned speeches about, like, as an example, removing fluoride from the drinking water,
Right.
and there will be cities and municipalities, and they will stop doing it, stop adding fluoride to the drinking water because of his positions
Exactly.
and his
Exactly.
recommendations from his CDC.
Right.
And what the scary thing about that is that because what he proposes, the removal of fluoride will cure our long-term problems. Like he's like, oh, it causes autism or whatever. I don't even remember his specific position on fluoride, but they're long-term problems, and he will claim it as a win initially when that happens.
Right.
And it will be almost impossible to basically pull back from those positions, because you're going to have to see it over the course of decades for the it won't even, if it doesn't cure autism over 50 years, in the next 50 years, right? That's still a problem, and we're studying it, and we find out over the next 50 years that the fluoride in the drinking water didn't cause that, because we're still seeing all this incidence of autism in children, right? But in addition to that, we're going to see all of these dental problems with children in
Right.
particular, but also adults, decade over decade, and it's just going to compound, and it's going to be so hard to fix in the short term.
Yeah.
And you know what he'll say? You know what I know.
Well, he'll be
already
dead
what
when
my
all this comes to
libertarian
pass.
friends will say.
So, oh,
I know what all my libertarian friends will say.
What's that?
They'll say, if that's true, like if that's an actual problem, the market will fix it. Someone will start selling fluoridized water.
You're right. I don't even know what to say to that. All right. Let's do you have anything else? I want to wrap up on RFK Jr. I feel like we've touched on him in every episode of the last 3 episodes.
Yes.
And I've had it with him.
Okay.
So let's go to someone else that I've had it with. I mean,
It's gonna be Elon.
It's Elon. Let's talk about Elon Musk for a second.
I didn't know that. We didn't go over what this next one was going to be. I just guessed that Elon annoyed Nate.
You did guess, and actually we didn't go over it because it's something I think that just broke recently, and I think this is funny. It's not something we're gonna talk too much about. I think it's pretty funny because we're both in California right now.
Yep.
We've each lived in a few different states. We're not born and raised in California. But anyway, I digress. California has, Gavin Newsom and Elon Musk have been kind of feuding, I guess you could say, for the last few years. Elon has...
They're best friends.
They're best friends. Elon
They just need to kiss and get it over with. That's just the problem.
I feel like it's going to happen eventually, but maybe not. Gavin Newsom has introduced a new electric vehicle rebate proposal for California, which they have done in the past. And this rebate program for purchases of new electric vehicles, it is to many reasons, right? We're trying to reduce the carbon emissions. I mean, we understand all the reasons why we're trying to make a shift to these types of vehicles. In this new rebate program proposal, California has completely excluded Tesla. So you can get
It
you
says if you buy an electric vehicle but not a Tesla,
but not a Tesla. And then
ah, man,
the
they really
underlying
just need to
reasons for
care.
this, it seems like, whoa, come on, what's going on here? According to Newsom, he claims that it's about creating market conditions for more of those cars and more of those car makers to make these types of vehicles without Tesla having monopoly on the industry, thereby lowering the prices for everybody. What do you make of that?
I don't buy that at all. I mean, that's just Newsom being kind of a, a prick. I don't have a better word for it.
Interesting.
I know that they've had squabbles over the years. We've been following Tesla for feels like forever at this point.
Right.
And one of the things early on in Newsom's career that he was upset about is that there's this just very antiquated, strange law. And I think that it's not just California. I think that there's sort of like a conglomerate across a couple of different states, but basically says that if you sell cars in California, you have to have like a dealership and there has to be like so
A
many
physical
cars on the
dealership.
lot
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
many that get sold in.
Right.
And Tesla was always like, for one, they were a startup when this whole argument began, and when Elon came onto the scene at Tesla, he started fighting tooth and nail. He said, "We're not going to build uh, our own, dealerships or anything, and we're not going to have our cars sold through dealerships. You're not going to have the Jim Remy whatever
Yeah.
Tesla
Yeah.
dealership
Yeah.
down in Orange because they just put a markup on the cars for no reason." And so they argued about that for a very long time, and ultimately Tesla got the better of the state law, basically showing, and they won it in court, that they can just sell directly to consumers and they don't have to abide by that. They're completely correct. And if you ask us, we agree with that. We're like, yeah, these car markets are very strange, and
Yeah.
they're completely artificial in nature. And so ever since then, it felt like California and Elon, but more recently Gavin Newsom and Elon have just been at each other's throats to just try and you know
Well,
one up each other and who can be the more sniveling little shit.
yeah. I mean, one of the major reasons that I think there's something up Elon's ass. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things up his ass, but one of the reasons was the disagreement over reopening the Fremont factory,
Yeah,
during
during COVID.
COVID-19,
Yeah,
right? So of course, Elon's argument was like, "Hey, how am I supposed to get my cars made?" And Elon's workers and Newsom's argument was, "Hey, what? People are dying.
yeah.
Maybe can you just chill out for
That'll
just
get
a
people killed. Don't do that.
can we just chill out for a few minutes?" So I guess the other point of this, by the way, for anybody listening, this rebate program is not in place yet. It's still in negotiation. This just dropped as like the initial draft. This is what we're looking at, and the proposed rebate program is part of Newsom's plan to counter the fact that it's from the sound of it, Donald Trump is going to repeal the $7,500 federal EV tax credit after he takes office, which is weird to
Weird.
me.
That's a very popular tax credit. Like that's been one of the most effective tax credits outside of marriage and children
Do
for the
we
last
do we do
8 years.
popular things in the United States though?
Donald Trump has, and I wanted to talk about this too, is that some of his policies, not all of them,
Wait,
some of
okay,
his
help me out
policies
here.
have been populist in nature. And I'll throw one at you that's recent. Like he's claimed this on the campaign trail, and this is one of his ideas, right? He's going to cut the taxes entirely for tipped wages. So, like wages you've earned from tips, right?
Okay,
That's a very popular
okay,
opinion
sure.
overall.
Sure. I mean, so is the idea of cutting government spending, right? Because there's
Yeah,
this idea that your tax dollars are going to useless government programs, right? Um,
sure.
and
Sure.
and he's got Elon Musk to to keep the thread together.
Yeah.
Elon Musk and Vivek working on, I don't know exactly what they'll do this. Maybe they deliver
Efficiency,
a
we'll just
report
say.
or something. Yeah. Will they'll say, here's where you can cut. Meanwhile, they're keeping the Trump, billionaire tax cuts in place that is actually costing Americans more than probably anything that Elon and the Doge department could eliminate.
Yeah. There's a bigger discussion at play here because I like to ask the question of like, who was the president for the last 4 years? And why didn't he repeal any of those Trump era policies or people who were hired to do certain things? DeJoy comes to mind. But like inaction in a lot of those instances to me is like, this is not a wildly popular thing. You could have had an easy W just by shooting it down. I mean, like, I'm the new sheriff, it's gone. Change the tax code on billionaires. Day one is Joe Biden. Favorability ratings shoots 5 points.
I know,
That's easy.
but it hurts his donors, and that's why it doesn't happen.
He didn't even need the donors. Kamala had the donors. Kamala could have said to the donors, hey, I know Joe Biden shot down your tax things. I'm going to fix that.
Well,
she did. But
Kamala needed to run on the same things that you're just talking about, things that were popular with the American people and not just status quo items. I know people are hating on this for some reason. Like, that doesn't make any sense. They were obviously very for the working class. I didn't hear any of that crap. I didn't hear Kamala saying what she was going to do for the working class other than mimicking what Trump said. Maybe she wasn't mimicking. Maybe it was an idea they had all along about.
First-time home buyer policy was a good one. It just didn't get out there.
Who cares?
I mean, first-time home buyers care.
Yeah. How many people are like, well, I can't wait to buy a home right now in this market? I don't think that moves the needle at all.
It does sort of speak to the tone deafness.
Right.
If you're like, oh, we'll give you $25,000 towards the purchase of your first home, and people are like, houses cost $1 million, and I've got 16 in my pocket, dude. What are you talking about?
Yes. Like, I'm literally complaining that I can't afford eggs, and you want me to take on a mortgage right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Man, that's a really good way of phrasing that, because you remember they did all the supermarkets and everything, the national chains did that price gouging in 23, I want to say, where like eggs were like $10 a dozen and things like that. It was a terrible, horrible inflation at the time. But and you're contrasting the people who are complaining about spending an extra $5 on eggs, and then you're like, but your first home will be a half of a 0.5% cheaper if you vote for me.
And you're like, listen,
they're like, what the are you talking about? Sorry, we got off track here. I want to circle back to the EVs thing because I had a thought on this. So the Elon California EVs thing,
okay,
and Trump
let's go back to that.
The EV tax credit. It's the same as him getting rid of the SALT tax credit and adding a cap. I know who buys EVs.
Right.
The liberal elites buy EVs.
Right.
The number of people who purchase, Tesla cars. We'll ignore the Cybertruck for the moment, but the Kia electric, the Honda electric, the people who buy those, they don't live in Oklahoma or Missouri or Ohio, or they live on the coast, and they've got good electrical grids, and they can plug in anywhere and everywhere, and they have supercharging stations and blah, blah, blah. So the only people that cutting that tax credit hurts are the coastal elites, and the voters love that shit. When he added the cap on the SALT deductions on taxes and said you can only deduct $10,000, I think that was the number, of your your mortgage interest payments and medical and some other things. That didn't affect anybody in the Midwest. That didn't affect anybody in the North. It only affected the coastal elites, where the costs of buying a home and the cost of medical services out there are so much higher that $10,000 as a cap is really low to a lot of people in California.
Yeah. So I mean,
he's going to do things that are popular, but it's going to be in the sense of like screwing the coastal elites and the liberals. And
he's screwing it. He's going to screw everybody. I mean, these people. I mean, if he does any of his tariffs, if any of his tariffs get implemented,
well, that one, I think he can't do the tariffs at the level that he's campaigned on it. I just don't think that any sensible Republican senators will allow it, because it'll destroy the American economy.
I mean, companies are already though raising prices in preparation for these types of things.
Well, they have to.
Well, not only that, but they're also going to just use it as an excuse. You brought up the
sure
the grocery prices, and anytime these companies can find an excuse to raise prices, they will. The FTC report that dropped, it was something like, inflation at 20% or whatever ridiculous number it was, while grocery stores were increasing prices by 25 to 30%. And obviously, because these records are public, especially for these public owned, these investor owned chains, we're recording record profits.
Yeah, your Krogers, your Walmarts,
and so I think the Walmarts of the world are gearing up to do literally the same thing. If tariffs are going to cost me, 3% more on certain items, we're going to raise the price 6%. We're going to record record profits. We're going to blame it on tariffs. And though tariffs will rightly be to blame for a lot of it, it's still going to be a lot of corporate price gouging too. And that's part of the reason why, as it looked like Trump was going to win the presidency and did, we saw even higher record stock market gains. These
it's going to be an amazing pump and dump scheme just across the nation.
It's so incredible. They're going to make these guys are going to make so much money.
And he said it at one of his rallies. He said it at the end. It was like the day before or the 2 days before the actual election. And he was talking about basically just the stock market being this huge pump and dump. And he has the clip of him leaning back and he's like, "We're going to make so much money." Just unbelievable ghoul.
I mean,
and the people who end up going to be paying for these things aren't people who are buying into the stocks necessarily, but there will be people left holding the bag there as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, grocery prices, steel prices, buying a new car, buying a new home, all of these things are going to go up just exorbitantly if they go through with these tariffs. We talk about tariffs in every episode, it seems, but
it's a major issue right now. I mean, it's a thing that could cause a lot.
And it's the sleeping giant. I mean, he said he's going to do it. Economists the world over have explained what will happen if he does that, and people are like, well, we'll see what happens. Well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You're like, well, I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna pay $10 for a dozen of eggs.
I want to end with something that I think probably needs to be a whole episode.
I'm ready.
And we probably only have, we like to keep these about 50 minutes to an hour. Elon Musk, I'm again carrying Elon Musk through this, but I'll end with what he did here. He congratulated Attorney General Andrew Bailey of Missouri because a Missouri court just hours ago has upheld the state's voter ID law, affirming that voters must present a valid photo ID to vote. Elon Musk has said, "Congratulations, AG Bailey. Now it's time to take this nationwide." Thoughts?
Well, you can't. I mean, there's a constitutional article that says that in order to vote, I only need to live in the United States. And that's originalism at its best. I don't see the words identification or anything in there, but let's assume that they try and pass something like that. Elections, especially federal elections and general elections at the national stage, those are run by local election officials. And that's why we see dozens of lawsuits in every district, in every county, every cycle.
Right.
Because they make some nuanced change and somebody says, "You're rigging the election. We're going to have a lawsuit about it." But by and large, I don't think that you can effectively make a law nationally without making a constitutional amendment requiring a voter ID. I'm not a legal scholar. I play one on, a podcast, but I don't think that you can enforce it without an amendment to Article 2.
And by the way, I mean, first, before I go into this a little bit deeper, for folks listening, this isn't Mike and I's, this isn't our day job. So if we're ever wrong, or if you feel like we're uninformed about something, definitely reach out, let us know, leave comments, because we're all here to learn, I think, and to be smarter about.
I love learning.
Yeah. So I mean, we're not opposed, obviously, to hearing that we're factually incorrect about something. We try I always have resources in front of me. I always we both do a lot of reading, so I think it's just really important to stay informed on these things. I do want to say that I disagree with you. I think
I,
that what a surprise. First of all, this I haven't read the ruling yet. I will say that it's not surprising that the Missouri court has upheld this. I think that if it goes to the Supreme Court, it will likely become a states' rights thing, and the Supreme Court will uphold it at the state level. And then every Republican state with a Republican Supreme Court is going to have similar to you. You can probably track every single state that has some sort of abortion ban will have voter ID laws. If and honestly, I don't know where they all are to begin with.
I just don't see it here. I'm going to give you the
Wow.
Cliff's notes as to why I disagree.
Okay.
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 And so my position is that the 24th Amendment prevents a poll tax. And I don't see how you're going to have a national voter ID that you're going to give away to free to every American citizen. How are you going to do that?
Oh, wait. You're saying that because of this, you think that we'll get free IDs?
It costs money to register and get a driver's
Right.
license.
I mean, and that's what this is about.
To get a passport. It costs money. So what's the ID that they're going to propose? It has to be a federal ID that identifies uniquely each American voting citizen, and it has to be free.
Okay. So obviously, I think right that's what this is all about. This is the Jim Crow era type of discrimination. That is, we know it's a pain in the ass for some people to get voter ID cards or renew their IDs or whatever. And so that's the whole point of this. We don't want those people voting, right? We want to make it harder for people who may vote liberal or Democrat or whatever to get IDs. So let's take a quick look here. This says 29 million Americans live under new voter ID laws put in place since 2020. So this says yes requested, which I guess means what? Yes.
I think that it's in response to the headline question of will I be asked to show an ID when voting? Yes, requested.
Okay, so it's just not requested, not required. So there are a lot of states where it's kind of like, I'm going to ask you for it, which is probably already discouraging for people. If they're like, I don't have my ID, and they're going to ask me for my ID. You might even be confused about whether it's I'm confused. So they're going to ask me for my ID, but it's not required, right? By the way, surprising.
Some states require a photo ID. Some require just some ID that you can say who you are and you can verify that that's a real person.
Yeah. So there's
we have this argument. I think you're right. I think this deserves its own episode, and we should definitely do that. We had an interesting discussion election night with one of our viewers who was talking about voter ID and voter integrity or voting integrity in the United States,
and that's an important part of this.
It deserves its own hour for us.
Okay, so I just want to say
very interesting, and we'll dig into that. I think.
Yeah, I do want to say that on this map, there are 3 states that do require voter IDs. Like it just say Arizona, Wyoming, and North Dakota.
No, I believe that those states require IDs, but they don't have to be photo IDs.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's interesting.
And then the red states that are highlighted on the map for the other states like Texas and whatnot, those require a photo ID in addition to requiring an identification to vote.
Okay, so yeah, it looks like Arizona says if you cannot show a photo ID, you can show 2 accepted documents containing name and address.
Usually that comes down to something like a gas bill and
any utilities or cable bill, those kinds of things.
But again, why are you doing this at the poll? It should be done at registration time. Anyway, we'll dig into this more deeply in the next episode where we go into poll taxes.
Oh, don't laugh.
I laugh.
Don't laugh. Okay, I think this is a good place to wrap. I hope everybody enjoys their Thanksgiving.
With your fluorinated water.
With your fluoridization. Is that what you've been saying? fluoridization. I think it's fluoridation. But anyway,
It's flornicated.
yeah,
No,
flornicated. Go have your flornication with your family. Wait, no, that doesn't sound right. And we'll catch everybody. I don't think we'll do another one this week. Probably early next week.
Probably next week.
Probably next week. But stay tuned. There'll be more shorts coming. Mike's doing shorts now. I think we broke the ice. I think Mike will have some more.
You're gonna see this ugly mug just talking into his phone and saying things from now on.
Yeah, it's better. It's better that you do it. I like to take the helm of the just kind of like guiding the episodes, because I have that face for radio and I'm so used to doing that. But you got the video face, so you're my
thanks.
yeah. So I think that's our role here. So I'd appreciate it if you did more shorts, and I'll just stay.
Okay.
I'll stay here and I'll do this thing.
So like 6 or 7 more shorts on fluorinated water. Got it.
I think people will be tired of that one after this. Okay, thanks everybody, and we'll catch you next week.